Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crossing Ken. I'm Randy. Kristen is off listening to music, watching a movie, reading a book, working, all the things that you have to do as an adult. But in our free time, we get to do Crossing Ken. But today I'm going solo, and there's a reason for that. You have borne witness as a member of the Crossing Ken family to Kristen's continual eye rolls whenever I say, never ever is the cover as good as the original. Well, today, that's what the whole show's about. We're going to have a conversation on covers. In fact, we're going to let you know what Newsweek printed, 2017, I think, were the top 10 covers in music of all time. But before we get to that, let's just talk a little bit about what we're talking about as a cover. King Solomon from the Bible. Solomon wrote something that said, "There's nothing new under the sun." Well, if you are alive today and you go to the movies or you listen to music, you are quick to understand that that is a very, very huge truth. And I would like to go on record as to say that most of the time, now I tease Kristen all the time about this, but most of the time, the original is far, far better than the cover. Now, I will confess that there have been times I'm like, you know what, that's actually better than the original. And if we go back, especially into the 40s, 50s, and some of the early roots of some real rock and roll, some of those originals were kind of rough. And we're really glad that they were remade. But I want to take again a step back. Let's think about something for just a minute. What makes a cover? Well, if you start talking about music, it's obviously a redo of an original song. I got to thinking, well, how do, books? We love books, but do books have covers? Certainly. They're called screenplays. And you wind up with a screenplay based off of a book that gets turned into a movie. And even sometimes that movie gets redone. Now, we have recast it here in the Crossing Ken garage and the Crossing Ken living room. We want you to go check out those videos. That's our reimaginings of what modern day actors would look like in classic films. But we never suggest that those get remade. Those films are perfect in their original iteration, and we just love that. Check out Recast It. I think there's a whole folder on the channel, Crossing Ken. Movies, some are go to Rotten Tomatoes and find out if you really, really want to go see the cover of an original movie. But for today, I want to tell you what Newsweek magazine. I don't agree with everything that they ever do, and certainly they're not the most music prone magazine out there, but they have a really neat list of 50 covers. We're just going to talk about the top 10. And I really want to go back to that point that covers are never as good as the originals. They're just not. You lose something in the interpretation, so to speak. And there are sometimes, for example, the band Chicago did a cover of their own song, 25 or 6 to 4. It's a reimagining. And for those of us who are just lovers of that classic song, the new one really doesn't do it justice, even by the band. There are some who would say, "Oh, but it's a different song." Well, yeah, it has a different rhythm and a different beat, but the song basically is the same. So that is one instance of my favorite band of all times. So before I go busting on anybody else's favorite band, I need to use mine. Chicago's my favorite band. I'm going to get to see them at Earth, Wind and Fire this fall. Looking forward to that. But they covered their own song. Now that's a rare occasion, granted. But we're going to talk about the top 10 according to Newsweek covers of all time. And I think you're not going to be surprised by who is covered, what band is covered the most. This list includes many songs of the Beatles, but I think there's a few surprises along the way that you might find. Now, let's also talk about one other thing before we do our countdown. White Christmas is the number one selling single of all time. Okay. If Irving Berlin were alive today, he would own the world just from the royalties of that song. Bing Crosby made it famous. Everybody and their grandbaby has done that song. I don't think this list includes it, but we'll see. I'm going to be surprised as we go through. I haven't read the complete article, so I'll be curious to see what songs show up. So let's dive in together. Now, at number 10, Norwegian Wood, The Bird Has Flown by the Beatles. It's been covered 206 times as of the writing of this particular article. Written by Lennon McCartney. Everybody from Hank Jr. to Count Basie and PM Dawn have covered that song. I've heard some of those reiterations, and I can tell you, nowhere close to the original. That is one of those songs that you just can't. Okay. Number nine comes in with John Lennon's Imagine. Another. There's no way you can, there's, personal opinion. And please let me know in the comments if you disagree with some of my thoughts on some of these songs. Let me take just a little bit of a break because I did think of a song that I think the cover is actually better than the original. I first saw it at, I want to say it was an Olympic trials or it was an ice skating performance of some sort. All of a sudden, I hear this very familiar melodic chord progression. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like Simon and Garfunkel. This should be fun. And then Disturbed came on with The Sound of Silence, and I was absolutely blown away. If you've not ever heard that version of The Sound of Silence, my personal conviction is it is much, much better than the original Simon and Garfunkel. Okay, comments in the comments section because I know perhaps some of you who are Simon and Garfunkel fans are probably, what is he thinking? Is what is in that cup? It's just coffee. Promise. Number nine, Imagine by John Lennon, covered 218 times by the likes of people like Willie Nelson, Jack Johnson, Madonna. I didn't realize Madonna had covered it, and Ray Charles. Number eight, Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles. Now, this is not a Beatles top 10, okay, but it is a top 10 cover. Here, There, and Everywhere 225 times, according to this article. It has been covered by Pink Floyd's guitarist David Gilmour, George Benson, Celine Dion, Perry Como, and John Denver. Now you got to remember a lot of those artists at the time. That was a very very big deal 50s, 60s, 70s where they would become standards in the industry. And those standards were covered time and time and time and time again. I mean, Bing Crosby covered Perry Como's, who covered Dean Martin's, who covered, all of the crooners at the time. Sinatra was a cover genius because he would take these great songs and, pardon the pun, do it his way. So it was one of those things that you just had to understand that those standards did. And again, I don't think those standards were ever done as good as the original song. So number eight, Here, There, and Everywhere. Coming in at number seven, Blackbird by the Beatles. Now, this is a song about Arkansas. Believe it or not, the Beatles wrote about Arkansas and some of the segregation things that were going on in Little Rock. Um, Covers include Sarah McLachlan, Neil Diamond, Fish, the kind of a Grateful Dead band, jam band Fish. So this is a song that has deep roots in the state of Arkansas. It has been covered 232 times by a variety of folks that we just mentioned. Number six, Summertime by Helen Jepsen. Summertime was adapted by soprano Helen Jepsen for the Porgy and Bess. Okay, I understand where this is coming from. Again, I'm seeing some of this for the first time too. It took me a second to connect what the song was. Phenomenal song. Phenomenal song. It was made famous by the cover of Ella Fitzgerald doing it. Louis Armstrong has recorded it. A lot of the great folks, uh, big bands of the 30s and 40s did this song. It is one of those standards we talked about a little while ago that just you can't quit. But the original was from the 1935 George Gershwin um, musical opera Porgy and Bess. Okay, moving right along. Michelle by the Beatles, another Beatles track, covered 243 times, most notably by the Four Tops, Diana Ross and the Supremes, and an easy listening version by the band's producer, George Martin. Trivia that you need to know when you go into Trivial Pursuit. So, we've just given you the one up on that, covered 243 times. The next song may or may not be a surprise to you. It's coming in at number four, Silent Night by John Freeman Young. It's been covered, officially recorded 254 different times. Everybody's covered the song, okay? Everybody. It's another one of those Christmas songs that winds up getting used every year and getting re-recorded every year by someone. Mark Lowry has gone on to say that he doesn't mind anybody covering Mary Did You Know because it's money in the bank. In fact, it paid for a tour bus for him. But one song equals one tour bus. So write a hit song, you can go on tour with your tour bus. Um, Christmas songs are just those really really great songs that continue to come back. Now, I confess, I've never heard the original recording of Silent Night. I'm not even 100% sure what that who John Freeman Young is. It's been covered 254 times, as we said. Everybody who is anybody puts out a Christmas album, puts this on their record. Number three, And I Love Her by the Beatles, covered 263 times. Great people like Richard Marx, Neil Diamond, Smokey Robinson, Lena Horne, and the Wailers. That's an interesting pairing. I have to look that one up. Um, Vince Gill and Barry Manilow have all recorded this song. So you just have to understand when it's a good song, other folks want the opportunity to record it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But nine times out of 10, it's not, just the magic is missing or something. There's just something not quite right in the neighborhood when you go to hear it. Especially if it's one of these top five, top 10, or number one songs that were recorded by the original artist, and you go back and you hear, wait a minute, something's off. That's not who originally recorded that. And you can tell pretty quickly most times. Here in the Crossing Ken living room, we love to listen to music. Now, we listen to covers too. Please don't get me wrong. We love music enough that we will listen to even not as good as the original covers. We've gained an appreciation. Kristen and I disagree on this quite a bit because she tends to like some covers from her generation more than she does the originals. One band in, for instance, um, the band Home Free. We've seen them twice in concert. Wonderful, wonderful concert. If you get to see this all a cappella Americana, I think is the best way to describe it, band with country roots, go and see Home Free. Now, you'll recognize a lot of the songs, they're covers. I don't think they're as good as the originals. Kristen would disagree because some of the songs, that was the first time she ever heard them. And that's a very important point, too. That whenever you fall in love with a song, usually it's the first time you've heard it. For example, my first experience with James Bond was Goldfinger. It's one of my favorite James Bond films, but it set me up for everything else that has to do in the James Bond universe. So everything in my psyche, so to speak, has to hit that Goldfinger bar. Now, there have been some James Bond films that have done that and some that have not, okay? But that's a great example of your generation finding or hearing a song for the very first time recorded by somebody in your era, so to speak, and you embracing that song. Doesn't mean that it's the original's terrible or anything, but you should really really honestly discover whether there was an original recording and at least give it a chance. Okay, on to the top two. And I think this is no surprise. The Beatles dominated every chart known to mankind since they came onto the recording charts history. Number two, believe it or not, it's Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles. It's been covered 349 times, recorded by the folks, musical legends Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Joan Baez. Alice Cooper said in 2014, after he recorded Eleanor Rigby. Go check that out. I promise you, I'm fixing to go find that thing. Alice Cooper, Eleanor Rigby. He said, you can't ever do it better than Paul McCartney. But he tried. Props for trying, Mr. Cooper. Props for trying. And number one on the Newsweek list is Yesterday by the Beatles. This is probably not a surprise by any of you Crossing Ken family members because you are aficionados in music, books, and video. You have the inside track, and you're part of the family that loves this kind of stuff. Yesterday's been covered 422 times by the likes of Elvis Presley, Marvin Gaye, Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, Boys to Men. Didn't know they had covered Yesterday. but those are not surprises. 422 times. Here's your challenge, Crossing Kin family. Go find all 422 iterations of Yesterday by the Beatles. We'll see you in a year. Good luck with that. Now, that's Newsweek's countdown. I mentioned a couple of covers as we've gone through. The 25 or 6 to 4 cover on Chicago covering themselves. I'm not a fan. There may be some of you who really, really like it because it was 25 or 6 to 4 for your generation. Disturbed's version of A Sound of Silence, on the other hand, is absolutely wonderful as far as a cover goes. I think it outdid Simon and Garfunkel's original. However, that being said, that's one of those one time out of 10 where the cover is better than the original. But for the most part, movies, books, video, the cover's never as good as the original. Never. Rarely. Once. And that's all I have to say about that. So, thanks for joining us. It's a little bit of a different episode this week. Come back next week. We've got some great stuff planned for you. Kristen has this calendar that goes through like 2028 of the things that we're producing here at Crossing Kin. Pray for me. Okay, so we love getting the opportunity to come into your platform, your media, your device. Thank you for watching. I have to say, our Star Wars recasted of A New Hope from Star Wars Month back in May was one of the highest viewings that we've ever had here at Crossing Kin, and we really, really appreciate that. So, tell your friends about Crossing Kin. If you love the stuff that we talk about, tell your friends at Crossing Kin. We're not for everybody, but anybody who tunes in is kin and part of the family. Okay, so for today, that's it. Newsweek's top 10 covers. Tell me what you think. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they missed something. Obviously, if 2017 to 2024, that's 7 years, the number of completion, by the way. 7 years that we've had for a ton of folks to recover some of these songs. So I suspect those numbers have changed a little bit, but it's a great resource to start with. Go investigate. Find out for yourself. Do you like the cover or 422 covers better than the original? Or is the original most of the time thebomb.com? So that's all I got for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Randy. We will see you in a couple of weeks on the next Crossing Kin. Have a great day.